What's up, everybody? On this episode of the podcast, we are going to be talking about the castrated the Russian castrated secret society. It's going to be really awesome. So you need to listen to that. But before we do that, we got to do our little baby update. So, what week are we on?
16.
All right.
So, what has happened so far is that your baby's eyes are beginning to become more and more sensitive. So I know that they just started working properly, per se, last week. Now they're becoming extremely hypersensitive, and they're starting to move side to side. And they've also begun sucking their thumb.
No.
Yeah, which is kind of neat. And their heart is pumping about 25 quarts of blood a day.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
How big is it? Do we have a size?
It's about the size of an avocado at this point.
Avocado.
Or an apple, if you're
so
not
if you're
a fan of avocados.
a white girl,
yeah,
this a baby, it's an avocado.
At 16
Can't kill
weeks.
it.
Can't kill it. That's the thing. Still can't kill it.
Still can't kill it. Still a baby.
That's right,
It's
liberals.
sad that all this is going on, and people still think it's okay to
Yeah.
get rid of your baby at this
That's
point.
the whole purpose of this entire baby, is to make people aware. Can't kill it.
Yep.
It's alive. It's alive.
It is alive.
Oh, man.
And I just realized that we were neglectful during the podcast episode.
Okay.
Because we record these afterwards.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, hold on. Wait.
Smoking that sticky green stuff.
There you go.
Sorry.
Which you also
I had
should not be doing while pregnant.
You should not be doing that while pregnant.
No, you can eat avocado, but you just, because your baby's the size of an avocado. But you can't be smoking that sticky green stuff.
No.
You can't. It's all right, you ready?
That wasn't supposed to be a good segue. We just missed it, and I have to have that in every single podcast episode. So
Yeah. For the next 50.
I appreciate you guys trying to back me up on it.
Yeah. we love it. We love that.
Anyways.
You love the sticky green stuff?
No. I
mean,
no, I gave that up
no
when
shame, but
I gave that up when it was illegal, and if it's ever
okay.
legalized, I'm still not gonna do it. I made that decision a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
okay.
So, hey, we got a great episode about people getting castrated in Russia. So sit back, grab a coffee, and enjoy.
You're listening to the All Out War podcast.
What's up, Warriors? Welcome to another episode of All Out War. I am Turner, and I'm in the studio with Rosie. What's up, Rosie?
Hey, what's up, man?
I love that new intro.
It is very good.
It just gets my head bopping every time. It's groovy.
It is groovy.
It is groovy. Yeah, man. And welcome to the podcast, our live audience. Hey, yeah. So they are back. We are back with another episode.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to continue on with our S3, the Secret Society series tonight. But before we do that, what do you know, man?
Oh, hey. Yeah. Did you know Psy from Gangnam Style?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did not like Americans. He wrote a song. He rapped a song about torturing and killing American soldiers and their families.
What? Isn't he from Korea?
Yeah.
Like South Korea, right?
Yeah. Okay. So during a 2004 protest against the U.S. presence in Iraq following the beheading of a Korean missionary, Psy, during a song called Dear American, so obviously their English isn't very good because it's Dear Americans.
Right, yeah, Dear American.
By the band Next, rapped the following lines. These are what Psy said. Kill those effing Yankees who have been torturing Iraqi captives. Kill those effing Yankees who ordered them to torture. Kill their daughters, mothers, daughters-in-law, and fathers. Kill them all slowly and painfully.
Man, talk about a grunge.
Yeah.
Dude.
Gangnam Style, yo.
But you said all this is because of a missionary was killed? A Korean missionary?
Yeah. who
Don't you think he would be like more forgiving?
Well, the other thing is if it was beheaded, if the missionary was beheaded in Iraq,
Right.
I don't think it was the Americans that killed him.
Yeah, so he doesn't even know his geopolitics.
No.
Oh, Gangham.
Yeah. American soldiers don't typically behead people like missionaries.
It's right. Yeah, missionaries are the ones that are like praying for those that are being hurt and stuff.
Yeah.
So, interesting.
So if you listen to Gangnam Style, you hate America and you need to leave. You need to get sent to Guantanamo Bay.
That's right. Learn your lesson.
You need to go over to. You need to leave. Go back to where you came from.
My goodness. Did you vote for Trump? Oh man.
Yeah.
Speaking of that,
that wasn't a to voting for Trump. I think I've said so.
So crazy news. Like I know we're gonna touch. We can't do the podcast without touching on this topic. We have to.
You shouldn't say touching.
Good point. Don't get hung up on words.
Yeah.
So it's Sunday.
Yeah.
Today's the 11th of August, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And yesterday, the 10th of August, before we recorded this, one of the most prominent, criminals hung and killed himself. Supposedly under suicide watch. And Jeffrey Epstein is the guy that we're talking about, obviously. And this is just crazy to me because they had just released all of these names.
Yeah, it was 2 days prior, so 3 days ago, from recording. I think it was like 2,000 pages of sealed documents were unsealed, and then I think this is how it happened, because then it was unsealed. One of the witnesses who was talking about the stuff in the documents, came out and publicly, or it was attributed to her.
Yeah.
And so she started naming a bunch of other names. I think it was a former governor or senator of New Mexico who was a Democrat.
Right.
And someone else.
Prince Andrew was in it, wasn't he?
Yeah, but I would say that's old news.
Oh, okay.
Because he got, I've been tweeting about him for a while.
Yeah, so I mean, it's sad that, quote unquote, he died.
I'm not sad that he died.
But here's the crazy thing. I just pulled up my Twitter. It's after 8:00 in the evening. It happened yesterday. It literally, like, number one was Epstein suicide. Number two was like Clinton body count. Mm-hmm. Right now, it's trending all the way down. Number 7. It went down. It was 6 like a half an hour ago. It's now 7 trending with over 60,000 tweets. The number 5 only has 14,000 tweets. So, there's something. They're not letting it be where it needs to be.
Yeah, and I found out, this was really interesting as well, that originally, like the Google search trends.
Yeah.
Because you can look up and see what keywords were trending, where, at what time, what their, the analytics are. Basic analytics.
Yeah.
And Clinton body count was yesterday trending everywhere in the United States.
Right.
Trump body count was only in California. Then it moved to New York, and then it was trending in Texas. So only those 3 states, Trump body count was...
In Texas? I wonder why I'm in Texas.
Well, Austin has a lot of tech companies, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's
a lot of people relocating to Texas, too. They're trying to make it blue by moving and immigrants and things like that.
Yeah. If we lose Texas, we will never lose again. We will never win.
Yeah, I know.
It's done.
I know.
But yeah, so...
we being the conservative vote.
Well, right, I mean, we haven't won in a while. We haven't won in a while, but...
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, so
Epstein, and here's the thing, it's like we did an entire podcast, I'm going to pat myself on the back here. We did an entire podcast on Pizzagate and Pedogate, and we talked about it, and he is no doubt part of that whole thing that was happening with some of the people he's involved with and that are being named. The reason that it's connected to Clinton body count, is because of his association with the Clintons. Mm-hmm. And whenever dirt comes out on the Clintons, people die.
Get suicided.
And so Yeah, keep that Clinton body count trending because it helps our.
Yeah.
On YouTube, we've been getting crushed. I mean, people have been watching that. It's our podcast, but it's in an audio form with just a backdrop on
Yeah,
it.
and we don't ever like. It's the service we use to upload it just automatically turns it into that, so we never even care. Now all of a sudden, it's getting
like 5 times the amount of views as any other podcast on that's been on there. But
yeah, so Jeffrey Epstein, a billionaire, pedophile, trafficker of children to the rich and powerful. And this is the other thing. If you think it's just the Clintons, it's not. They are very small potatoes compared to the royal family, the British royal family.
Yep.
Billionaires, like, it's when you even think about, millionaires or stuff like that, the Clintons, I mean, they have a lot of money. 100 millionaires or whatever to say. When you have guys that are like, even Trump 4 billion, if you say the low estimate, that's multitudes. That's a whole nother category of people. When you're getting into billions,
right? That
millionaires just, it's a whole nother level of elite.
So like what a millionaire would be to you and me, is what a billionaire is to them.
Yeah. Like, oh, I can't, because if you have $100 million or something like that, you can't afford like 5 $50 million houses.
Right.
Or building $100 million houses, apartment complexes and stuff. You know what I mean?
Right. It puts you in a, like, you're like at like GDP's equivalents for small countries and stuff like that.
Billionaires?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Multi-billionaires.
Yeah.
Like if your net worth is like $20 billion, say.
Yeah.
Which some of these guys are, or more.
Yeah. I mean,
So that puts you at like the GDP.
The whole point is that they're at such an elite level that if you're selling yourself short if you think it's just the Clintons.
Right. They're just the most American known.
Yeah.
Probably name.
Yeah, but yeah. So he, if you don't know what we're talking about, and which is weird, is everybody knows. Like, it seems nobody is buying this. Nobody's buying it, which therefore means, everyone is now a conspiracy theorist.
Right.
If you doubt the story in any form, you are now a conspiracy theorist. Welcome to the family.
That's right.
You can't help it because you're a conspiracy theorist. If you doubt the mainstream story that he just killed himself, and there's nothing suspicious about the fact that he was taken off suicide watch shortly before.
Yeah, and like here's another thing. There was reports coming out that the cameras weren't operating correctly.
The camera malfunctioned the night that he was killed himself. And so he got moved into a federal prison. Yeah. Particularly because he's so high profile that they could keep a better eye on him. Right. So there's this thing where, if you move to the federal, I'm not going to knock this, but just take this for what it's worth. Is people would look at like, state prison, and you're like, oh, okay, some GED prison guard, like something like that. People think they're like, these idiot prison guards, but federal level, it's very secure. We house, the worst of the worst, and we can keep a really good eye on them, and we're super trained and all that stuff, which is probably, there's some merit to it, but that's why they move them. And so you have probably the most high profile guy right now in prison. He tried to kill himself. He got beaten up.
Well, here's the other thing too. Like a lot of people don't know. I didn't know he got beat up, but the guy that he was originally in with,
that's who beat him up.
Oh, the ex-cop. Yeah, he was a 4-time homicide, convicted homicide felon of, and he was a dirty cop. He was also found with a cell phone. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah, when that first happened, everyone's like, "This is weird." Right. And then all of a sudden,
he ends up with a phone, and then Jeffrey tries to kill himself, slits his wrist.
No, I think he tried to hang himself. I think.
Was it? Yeah. I thought he tried to slit his wrist. But so is it possible that someone called, slipped his phone in, and then said, "Hey, you're gonna get a phone call. Do what they say, and your family will be taken care of." Like taken care of financially. Yeah. Or whatever.
Because you don't even need to bring a cell phone in. I mean, a guard could have just told, pay a guard, hey, take care of him.
Well, they paid off the guards, I'm sure, too.
Well, yeah, so the 3 guards that were supposed to be watching him, and this is the thing people may not understand, and not that I'm some prison expert, but when someone's on you just watch Locked Up, a regular show where they go inside prisons. If someone's on suicide watch, they're in a room where someone is literally staring at them 8 hours, their shift. They're staring into this room. You don't have anything.
Watching them.
You're watching them, so they
Right.
don't kill themselves because they're on suicide watch.
Yeah, and they put them in like this like tear-proof clothing.
Yeah, they
so
don't have anything
can't-
that can...
No shoelaces, like the whole anything that could possibly use to harm
Right,
himself.
but there's people constantly monitoring.
Yeah.
So if you have a high-profile guy and the camera malfunctions, okay, maybe it does. Why didn't it get fixed right away? And the other thing is,
where was the guy watching?
well, no, why didn't you move the highest-profile guy in the news? Everyone's going after him to a different cell
Right,
because he's
so
clearly
the camera works.
Yeah, just move him to a cell with the camera works. That happens all the time. There's problems, stuff in prisons that they just move temporarily.
Right.
And
Yeah,
the 3 prison guards that were supposed to watch him got sent home.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, there's too
So-
much. There's just
and,
too much
here's the other
around
thing.
it. Yeah.
it's very hard. You can't hang yourself, like, even in federal prisons, even if you're not on suicide watch, there's nothing to hang yourself on.
Yeah, there's no bar.
There's no loop. There's
no-
nothing. The bed comes straight out.
Yeah, right.
It'd be different if, like, he broke his neck bashing his head into the wall. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that, you can understand. You're like, okay, he can do that.
Right.
But you can't hang yourself. Like, there's no faucets on the sink. There's nothing.
Right.
And he didn't have anything to hang himself with. There's no material to hang himself
I
with.
know. It's just too strange. This
So-
is like, man, it's another one we add to the Clinton body count.
I wouldn't say that. But
I would put it in there. You know why? Because everyone that tries to bring dirt on the Clintons gets killed.
But I would
Every time.
I would disagree and say, like I said, this goes farther than the Clintons.
Well, I agree with that, but I think the Clintons have the track record to say, suspiciously, who could have done this?
Well, yeah, but I think it's. I don't think.
But when you're a ultra billionaire,
yeah,
things happen.
well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. The
And
Clinton.
the-
I don't think the Clintons could have pulled this off.
They're just happy it did.
Yeah. Yeah, so they're tangentially, it helps them.
Right. Of course, because they're
But-
like freaking cats.
But you got to think, like, these people that are running global national corporations, mega billion trillion dollar,
right.
global banking systems and stuff like that, which billion,
Yeah.
these very, very, very ultra rich people, they don't care about the Clintons. They don't care about some old rapist. They don't care about him. They're not going to protect him. They're protecting themselves. So,
Yeah. Now,
but anyways,
now,
literally everybody.
they would have benefited greatly though if Hillary would have been elected, because she would have,
Yeah.
Benghazi'd anything to give them what they wanted, and because they'll pat her pockets. She
Yeah.
knows that, right?
Yeah, she's corrupt.
She's corrupt. Yeah.
But yeah, so
Wow. So, anyways, it's not even trending upward on Twitter now. It's like
Not anymore.
6. It might even be 7. I'll check it again before the end of the podcast and see how far off it is.
yeah, so it started at 7, and
Yeah. If anybody wants to listen to episode 44 of this podcast, no, I'm serious. I know that sounds self-serving, but if you want to listen to get caught up on some of the background stuff, and this actually ties in really, really closely with our topic that we're going to talk about tonight as well. Actually, it's down to 10 now. I just checked it on Twitter.
so
In an hour, it's gone from 6
10 minutes.
to 10. Or 10 minutes, yeah. It's
Yeah.
gone from 6 to 10.
7 to 10.
Yeah, but 30 minutes before that, it was at 6.
Yeah.
So it's dropping even more. And the Twitter retweet count keeps going up. It's like in
Yeah.
86,000 now.
Yeah.
Tweets, but
I mean, that's the thing. It's not even a conspiracy. Everyone knows that they're trying to silence.
yeah.
So it's, of
So
course.
that's one thing, and then it's like you can't. Truth is being just muzzled as much
Yeah.
as possible.
But this is actually, like, really backfired on everyone because this is so blatant
Right.
that nobody.
Yeah.
You have to be as dead as Jeffrey Epstein is to believe that anything of what they said.
Right.
Nobody believes this.
All right, so let me run this by you because I was reading. So
Yeah.
here's what happened to me. On Saturday morning, my wife and I we had to go do this thing, and so we were sitting in someone's business, and we were sitting there waiting, and I opened up my phone, and it was like 9 o'clock in the morning, and I see the news report that it was on Twitter actually. It was like Jeffrey Epstein dead at whatever his age is, 64 or however old he was. I don't know how old he was. And I was like, what? And I was like, and for like 15 seconds I was surprised, and then I was like, of course he's dead. Like I didn't think he was gonna make it out of there. Like I didn't think he was gonna get to trial. Like in my head, like in all reality, this did not surprise me.
Yeah.
Just because of all that it's connected to, and that was like kind of how I felt about it. Mm-hmm. And then it blew up, of course, But what I was gonna say is we're doing this Secret Society, series, and one of the aspects of the Secret Society series is when it gets to these elite secret societies, there's these cultic practices and occult practices that involve a lot of sexual deviance. Mm-hmm. And that one of the things that we can talk about here is that with Pizzagate in particular, is that they involve something like spirit cooking, which we talk about on that particular episode 44 when we talk about Pizzagate, and it was an occult practice and it was ritualistic, and it's to bring power and all these other things. And we find that these secret societies all have these ritualistic practices involving all kinds of different things. Some of them are just alchemic, where they're just putting chemicals together and saying secret slogans and words, and they're trying to evoke in some esoteric way the unseen,
or literally casting demons,
or that. Yeah, some of it's more literal in that, and but the one we're going to talk about tonight actually involves sexual deviance. So one of the ones we're going to talk about tonight. So, and it's got the best name out of all of them. Like when I saw this one, when we were doing our research, when we got our research stuff, I was like, oh my gosh, we got to talk about this one. Right? Yeah. And then I read it and I was like, oh, this is disgusting. This is horrible. Yeah. Why you would ever be a part of this secret society, it just blows me away. It's just the dumbest thing ever. So the first one we're going to talk about, the castrators of Russia. The castrators, man. Oh, gosh. And I'll just read something real quick. It says, one of the most extreme secret cults in recent time is now you're going to help me with this, Skoptsy?
I would assume. Yeah, this is all Russian, so there's a lot of Russian. Yeah. So the Skoptsy? Yeah. Skoptsy? I don't know.
Which means castrated in Russian.
Yeah.
Of Russia and the Balkans. So the Skoptsy secret society. And it says the fact that they carried out castration as part of their religious rites caused them to be considered insane. So these were the castrators of Russia. It says, although given a Christian framework, the cult of the castrated and the castrators was descended from the ideas founded in the old mystery religions. Ascetic monks and saints felt that they could attain affinity with the divine through self-mortification. Worshippers of classic mother goddess, and particularly their priests, celebrated their devotion by the sacrifice of their genitalia. So that'll give you the groundwork of this weird secret society that are called the castrators of Russia. Just some of the things that we can go through on it is that, in fact, if you Wikipedia castration, you can see that there's a tab for religion. Mm-hmm. And this religion comes up. They don't call it the castrators of Russia. They call it Scopetism, or however you say this Russian name for castration.
Yeah.
They call it Scopetism. And I think it's called Skoptsy, because I think the T is silent.
Yeah.
In Russian, if I remember correctly, in all my years in the gulag back in the day. But hold on. Excuse me. I'm still getting over this weird summer cold that I've had for a couple weeks.
Which, just so anyone else doesn't buy that, there's no such thing as a summer cold.
Whatever. It's a cold I got in the summer.
Yeah.
So
I think you got Ebola, dude. People don't get colds in the summer.
Really? You're looking at one.
Yeah, you got Ebola.
It's the same kind of feelings I get in the winter when I get like a cold, like flu-like symptoms. I get like the cold, I get the chills. I got like this weird drainage that comes down the back of my nose.
Dude, I'm not going to say it on air, but your immune system's kind of... Maybe you got
I do not have AIDS. I do not have AIDS. I've been blood tested, man.
Okay.
All right. I'm clean, boy.
I think you do.
I'm clean. All right. Scopetism in its modern form started in 1757 among members of the sect of the flagellants, not flagellants.
Flatulence.
Flagellating is when you would whip yourself and beat yourself. There's all kinds of actually Catholic sects that practice self-flagellation, and they basically will whip themselves with a cat of nine tails to cause themselves to bleed for the sake of reaching a higher or ascended state of spirituality.
You're skipping a lot, man.
No, I'm filling
Okay.
in the blanks right now. That word flagellant made me do it. I was talking about Catholics, not talking about this group.
I know it goes into it.
All right, I know. So the people who lashed and mutilated themselves as a means to attain a state of an excitement and coma, which is to be found in religious and secret sects throughout the world. So Rasputin, the mad mystic of Russia, was a flagellant. I didn't know that. Their ceremonies were touched upon by Prince Yusupov. Thus, they claimed to be inspired with the Word and the incarnate Christ, a monstrous combination of the Christian religion with the pagan rites and primitive superstitions. The purpose of these radniya, or ceremonies, was to create a religious ecstasy, an erotic frenzy. After invocations and hymns, the faithful formed a ring and began to sway in a rhythm, and then to whirl around and round, spinning faster and faster. The master of ceremonies flogged any dancer whose vigor abated. The Radni, how do you say that? What is
I don't know, man.
Radne or Enyi? So it's just a weird word that I think it's Russian.
Ceremonies. Yeah.
Yeah. Ended in a horrible orgy. Everyone rolling on the ground in ecstasy or in convulsions. So that's interesting. So you and I were talking beforehand, and so this was the big question. Like, if you've been castrated, it greatly depletes your sex drive.
Right.
And I know from my biblical studies that some guys like Daniel, that we believe that he was castrated. This would be what they call eunuchs in the Bible. They would be defined as a eunuch. And so they did that for the purpose. Like, for instance, Daniel was made a eunuch because when he was put in the court of the ruler or the king, in that case it would have been Nebuchadnezzar, I think he served through 3 different kings.
Yeah.
But whatever king he's in the court of, if he's a handsome guy, which we know Daniel was actually pretty handsome dude, like Joseph was as well, to keep his queen from being violated and impregnated, right?
Yeah.
Too, because if one of the court guys, he's a peasant, but he's working for the king, maybe he's highly intelligent, but he's doesn't have any earthly possessions or any power because he's in the submission to the king. If he gets the queen pregnant and has a baby, everything changes.
Yeah.
Right? Unless the king's really vindictive and he might kill the queen. So anyways, my whole point on this is that, like, biblically, they would do this to deplete sex drive.
Yeah.
So it blew me away, and it really puzzled me when I realized that they would do this weird ritual where they would spin around and gyrate and do all of these like weird, like hyperstatic, like rituals, and then they would end in an orgy.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I don't think orgy's used in the same term here.
You don't think so?
No, because I was going to say, in a horrible orgy, everyone rolling on the ground in ecstasy. So I think an orgy just might mean
it's almost like like
a group of.
It's just
things.
A massive movement of people.
But I would assume they were.
But we do know, because they talk about it later.
Yeah.
In the book, so we do know that there's sexual stuff that happens. But so this secret society, it was started in the late
1757.
Right. Yeah. So in the 1700s, and it kind of went through, and we know that based on the studies that there's some sects of this that are still around today, that are still existing today, and the practice is what makes it outstanding.
Yeah.
The castration. And so the devotee, in order to really find their place in the secret society, to prove their loyalty and to gain access to secret knowledge, again here whatever their secret religious knowledge was, the castration was the pathway to that, because it proved their loyalty. And I also read in here too that there was some of these like offshoots of the sect would actually permit some people to have 2 kids,
Yeah.
1 or 2 kids. Some of them make, I think, even 3.
It said 2, yeah.
Was it 2? Yeah. And but then they wouldn't allow them. After that, they would be castrated, and they thought that having a kid was like the greatest sin. Like,
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah, well, let's keep reading it. We'll get into all that.
okay. All right. So they're getting. We kind of explain like some of the basics of what they would do and how they would, be known as, and then it says the master's home. This is on page 70, what I'm looking at right now.
Oh, we skipped a bunch. Okay.
Not a whole bunch. It's just some names and some people that kind of were institutionally, starting it and all. But the master's home was called the House of God, or sometimes Heavenly Zion. Sometimes it was referred to as New Jerusalem. A guy by the name of Selenov, and he's a name that we'll say many times, was a reincarnation of Christ, who was himself the embodiment of an earlier unidentified deity. His transmigration was not direct, having been through the body of Peter III, who had been born, they claimed, of the Immaculate Virgin Elizabeth Petrovna. So, man, these Russian names, I'll probably do better than like
Petrovna.
What did I say?
I don't know. I'm just repeating it. Yeah.
Petrovna. Yeah.
They're fun.
Yeah. Russian's a crazy language.
Yeah.
So she was an empress, right? And it says she ruled, or the empress ruled in actuality, it is said, for 2 years only. After this, she transferred her power to a woman of the court who resembled her, changing her name to Akulina Ivanova. Ivanova. She dedicated herself to the cult. I should say Ivanova. That sounds a little bit more Russian, doesn't it?
Yeah.
She lived at first at the house of the Skoptsy prophets. So this is interesting. Prophets, you earn the title of prophet in this secret society by converting 12 people to join and castrate themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure if there was a whole lot of people that were actually prophets, but they would become the leaders of sort of the ritual activities. They would kind of give the message and whip the people when they weren't, spinning fast enough and stuff like that. So that's just a look into sort of the structure of the leadership in the cult, in the secret society. So one thing that I was going to point out is that disciples pointed to Silenov's undoubted popularity with people of quality as one indication of his former life. So I'm right on the next page there. And it says Shilov, the believers asserted, was the forerunner and merely the announcer of the Redeemer, Serlenov. So there was this guy Serlenov, and he had a guy that went ahead of him announcing that he was going to come. The book of the Passion of Serlenov, or the Redeemer, tells how Emperor Paul I had Selenov brought back to metropolitan Russia to hand him his crown as he recognized him as his father. But that is not possible because Selenov, of course, demanded that Paul be castrated in order to become a proper member of the true faith. As a result, Selenov was imprisoned by the perverse Paul, who valued his genitals more than he did the Redeemer. So what was happening was the secret society was actually beginning to gain in popularity in Russia, and it was gathering power, and people that were in the elites were starting to, emperors, empresses, and people who had power and money were getting swayed into this thing. And so this guy was put in prison, and then he was released by this guy Paul, and Paul wanted to bring him in and make him kind of like give him his shot, and he ends up putting him in jail because Paul decides, I like your cult, I just like my testicles better.
Yeah.
And so it turns on him, and he ends up going into prison for that, which is crazy to think about, that he had that kind of power. And remember, I was mentioning that it's still active today. Like, we still have parts of it that are known today. It says that Selenov, when the government decided to confine him to the monastery of Suzdal, gave out that he would live. He gave out that he would live forever, and this belief continued long after his death. So we know he didn't live forever. It is said that the legend still believed in due course he will reappear and take control of all of Russia, and everyone will be castrated. Present-day followers of the cult, at least until recently in the Balkans and currently quite secretly in Lebanon and Turkey, have modified the teachings. Each member is allowed to have 2 children, after which he must be castrated and can fulfill himself in the way of which the sect insists was his destiny. So that's what we were talking about there. So it's still around today, and they've modified it because really, honestly, if everyone's castrated, no one can have kids, and then you die off, right? It's like your cult just dies off on its own.
Yeah, well, the easiest way to grow your cult, as you see by, I don't know, a really big popular cult like Islam, is to have babies that are born into that cult, because it's a lot harder to convince people to convert. It's a lot easier to outbreed.
Yeah, and if it's the only thing they know, you hold them in that bubble of that belief system and stuff, and everyone who's outside of it is the enemy as well, which is
infidel.
Infidel, right? That's right.
There you go.
You got anything you want to add to
No
anything so far? All right, so we talked about how when an initiate would join this secret society, they'd have this rite of passage through castration, and I'm imagining, they don't really go into details in this that I saw, but I'm imagining that there's sort of like levels that you would go up to through your initiation process.
Yeah, well, it had talked about it when they had prophets and then they had masters.
Okay,
so there are different
so
levels. Clearly,
but it seemed like the prophet was just based on converts, so you basically are rewarded for converting people and castrating them.
Right.
I wonder if it was like when David went to get all the foreskins so he could get his wife from Saul.
Yeah.
He's like, I need 1,000 foreskins or whatever the number was. I forget. I think it was 300. Yeah. I wonder if it was like that. Like the castrator's like, hey, I got 16 pairs. They're like
pairs.
Well, yeah, because you cut them off in pairs, right? Am I missing something?
Most people only have one penis and therefore one foreskin.
No, castration's the testicles.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I thought you meant. Yeah. You're right.
I got several pairs of.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, let me count your sack. That came out way wrong. Hold on.
Yeah.
Let me count your bag of testicles.
Let's count how many.
Yeah. My mom's not listening right now. She just turned this off.
Yeah.
She's more embarrassed of me there. All right, let's talk a little bit about that secret.
Well, I was going to say what's interesting about how we found out, and it's always interesting, I think, to talk about how we actually find out what these teachings are. And it says right here, when Selivanov, whatever that dude,
he
was actually a peasant, the guy that started everything, said he died in 1832. He was in a monastery at Spaso Euphemius. Yeah. It says one of his most fanatical lieutenants, a lieutenant named Captain Sosanovich, was placed in another monastery where he reconverted to Orthodox Christianity and revealed the innermost secrets of the cult to the abbot. So here you go, is guy gets out of it. They would call it deprogramming nowadays. When you get out of the cult mindset and everything like that. We talked about that when we talked about cults, and revealed all these secrets. So it's kind of cool to see, that's how we found out. It was actually a guy that came out of it and told everyone who was high up. Yeah, lieutenant, which again would give some credence to levels of
initiate levels. Yeah.
But this is what's really interesting too. As it says, the cult showed remarkable propensity for spreading. A Russian doctor who prepared maps of its diffusion, taken from the accounts of the people who had been caught and tried during a succession of cases in the early 19th century. So based on all these people, because they do start going to trial, we'll go into that up until 1839, the cult had centers in most Russian provinces. So again, this is why he's jailing, Paul, in the leadership, the kings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because Russia still had a monarchy, the czars, why they're actually caring about all these people. It's not a bunch of crazy, like at the beginning it says, you would think this is crazy people that were, a small, Heaven's Gate. They only had like 20 people, less than 30 people, I think.
I think it was 16, wasn't it? Or 26 people, I think it was. Or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forget what it was. Yeah.
Well, it's less than 30 that they had killed themselves.
Right.
And there was another cult. I mean, even Jim Jones, most of those people were murdered now.
Yeah.
They shot, needle marks, all that kind of stuff. So that was not really a mass suicide. There's another one called the Old Order of the Solar Temple. It was up in Canada and I think Switzerland. That was another cult right around in the early 90s that probably has the greatest actual mass suicide count. And it was like 70.
Right.
And they killed a bunch of babies too. But anyway, so you think of when these crazy cults, I guess, there's the Aum Shinrikyo in Japan killed a bunch of people, but didn't have a lot of suicide. But anyway, point I'm making is these super fanatical ones that go to extremes don't usually have a lot of people. This one says they had centers or churches in every Russian province.
Yeah.
So these guys really were a threat.
Well, I think, they were talking about the numbers or later on and like the methods, like how many people were castrated with like an axe versus like, which would suck, versus like a piece of tin or whatever.
Yeah, well, let's get to that when we get there.
But, so the other thing too was that they endured a lot of persecution.
Yeah.
Siberia was mentioned more than once of where they would get sent. They would, the gulag, I suppose.
Yeah, I think we skipped over one of the parts where they actually sent the leader Selivanov to Siberia. He got out, came back to the city. I think it said like a big city. I wasn't sure if it was Moscow or St. Petersburg.
Petersburg is what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So he went back there to the same place he just got sent from, starts preaching again, and then like no one even cares. But these guys got sent, and they would escape all the time, or they would go, as we'll see later, where they get sent to some place. And government hoped they would just go out to this wilderness and die.
Right.
They actually started centers, and then people around there like would congregate,
be converts,
and convert. Yeah,
that still blows me away. It's like, so this is the thing I was going to talk about, the secret, right?
Yeah,
this is the power that they held over people because they would promise. It's like the carrot, like hanging out, like, hey, you can get to know the secret. The secret's powerful. The secret's going to change everything. Like, this is why we're so powerful. And they could say that because they were spread out all over the whole of Russia.
Yeah, and they actually did have they had infiltrated. When think of that as, with a prince back then, or the czar, or the king, and he brings you into his court.
Yeah,
I mean that's like Trump or the president, bringing
some spiritual advisor in, right?
Yeah, and literally sitting on one of his advisors,
right?
Who advise, like they have a lot of power.
Yeah,
these people that are brought in like that. So you got to think like it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy.
Yeah, but I was gonna say, so going back to this, it says they embraced people of several different races and temperaments, which is interesting. So it wasn't just certain people or a certain race.
Yeah, the white Russian, Euro, whatever, Slavic.
Yeah. It said great concentrations of the people of God, as it said, existed as far apart as St. Petersburg and the Black Sea area and the borders of the White Sea.
Yeah.
Even by 1822, the spread had been extraordinary. Most of the gold and silversmiths of the capital belonged to it, and Crimea was thoroughly infiltrated with the doctrine. So, and this is the other thing you have to think about. Russia is so huge as a landmass. And even back then, when they had the whole Russian Empire, you had a lot of people.
Yeah, it was a lot of people.
Yeah.
So it says this. It says more than one theorist claims that there was a secret for which confided to the members only after they had been castrated. By making the sacrifice of that magnitude, the member would not only be proved to be worthy, but would he would not only have very much to go back to if he were to revert. So in other words, like you once you make the commitment of castration, you're totally like in it. Like you can't go back. Like it's a big commitment. And then it says the secret, according to a confession of one who is referred to as a Skopes, who had gone mad, was the means whereby one man or woman can gain absolute power over another and appear to cause miracles. The inner teaching said a young man who had heard such things discussed by his parents when he was almost in his cradle, and who escaped before puberty to avoid the euthanistic attentions.
Enthusiastic.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah, he probably wished he was euthanized. The enthusiastic attentions of his nearest and dearest. Was that a man can have the power of a god? This power is immensely greater and more fulfilling than obeying the dictates of fate in a procreative activity which has been imposed upon one. Only by sacrificing the organ of such indulgence could a person cultivate the taste for greater real power. Real in quotes there. So the secret was that they would have this real power, and it came at the expense of cutting off your things, parting with something that was important. And I think they looked at, which is strange to me, they looked at sex as, it seems almost hypocritical, because they do have these sexual orgies that happen later on. We find about it does seem hypocritical that they would cut those off to keep a person pure, but then they would involve themselves in these other bizarre activities. You know what I'm saying? Like, that just seems strange to me.
Yeah,
so
sure.
But anyway, so as this is now, we're moving up all the way into like the late 1800s with this, it's been going on for almost 100 years. And then one of the traits of the secret society was that it would influence the wealthy and what we would call the elite class. And this is where I was like, in my mind, I was making a connection, and you just go with me on this. All right. This is in my mind where I was making a connection with this whole Epstein thing, because in my mind, I think that that the elite, who are part of that circle of the pedo rings and the sexual thing and all the human trafficking and all that, it was to serve the elite. They weren't getting the common man in this, right? But what happened was, as a majority of the castrators were peasants, because by sheer numbers, a majority of Russia was peasants. They were ruled by, as you were saying, the Tsars, is that what they call it? Tsars, yeah, and the monarchy, or whatever you want to call it. And so a majority of people were these peasants, and it did take off in certain circles of trades, like silversmiths, blacksmiths, things like that. Like they would kind of embark around this cult, and it was mainly because it gave them power. It gave them power, and it gave them ability. Wealth. What they seek,
it's what they thought would give them power,
right? But if you were definitely outside of it and didn't do a part of it, you weren't going to have access to certain things and certain people and things like that.
Yeah.
So it did possess some kind of weird power. And so I was just going to read a little bit about this, because this is where it connects to me. It says the town of Morchansk in the province of Tabov was witnessing remarkable scenes of mass and instant conversions, hallucinations, and the ever-growing power of the sinister Skoptsy. On the last night of the year in 1869, the chief of police of the town was at a party. So it was New Year's Eve, the chief of police is at a party. About midnight, he was called out of the room and handed a letter by a servant of an important merchant asking for the release of 3 women of the sect who were in custody. They would be returned to their prison in the morning. 10,000 rubles in cash were enclosed with the letter. So it's appearing to be some kind of like, hey, I'll give you money, release these 3 ladies for just a few hours. It says the matter was immediately turned over to the criminal investigation department. The merchant, one Platakine, some Russian name, yeah, we'll call him Plati, was arrested on an attempted bribery charge, and his house was searched. His home was found to consist of a cluster of houses built over 4 immense underground cellars. From these vaults, a huge amount of treasure and gold and banknotes was unearthed. But the damning evidence was an extensive correspondence with numerous wealthy merchants in various parts of Russia, including the well-known St. Petersburg, a well-known St. Petersburg millionaire. The letters showed that all of the members of the cult were engaged in activities ranging from increasing their influence through bribery and recruitment to preparing for the overthrow of the state. People interviewed stated that the reason for asking for temporary release of the 3 women cultists was that they were needed to help to produce the ritual ecstasy which the sect was indulging in. It was believed that by using some of the prisoners in their rites, they would all be enabled to go free in some magical manner. This, of course, is nothing less than the principle of sympathetic magic, like affects like. Going on this assumption, they would have made use of policemen and jailers too, if they could get a hold of them, to bring this element into the magical activities. Plotly, whatever. What do we say we were going to call this guy? This guy that was trying to bribe the jailer. His name was Plotison. Was deprived of his dignities and his civil rights, and banished to Siberia along with 12 other men and 19 women members of the movement. The correspondence plots discovered led now to the attempted uprooting of Skoptsy and other parts of the Russian Empire. Nearly 2 years were occupied with the trials of the accused high and low, who were daily being discovered. Such horrors were revealed and such important people implicated that it was forbidden to publish further details of the cases. So they had this is another way where I was connecting. This is like a deep state thing. They're trying to subvert and take over and bribe and control the government, from the inside. And so this was just a guy that got caught. He's like, hey, we need this for this rite, this ritualistic act. And then they have all these monies that they had gotten from wealthy and influential people, the elites of Russia that were part of this cult, this is secret society. Mm-hmm. And they were using that money and using those things to give to them to try and bribe, this official, this jailer, this guy that ran the prison or whatever, to release these 3 women, to just do a ritualistic activity. But what it did is when they investigated it, it revealed so much more. Yeah, so a good guy, by immediately turning the bribe in and not taking it, exposed all of it. Yeah. The network. Isn't that crazy? Mm-hmm. Like one guy reveals it all.
Yeah.
Sounds familiar, doesn't it?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Epstein. Oh. He wasn't a good guy though.
Yeah.
So anyways, and so that they're using these officials and they're trying to bribe them and they're trying to just kind of get their talons even deeper in. And also there's another part where it's talking about where they even paid off certain people in the church, like in the Catholic Church, to so that they would they would allow them to do what they were doing in their towns and stuff like that. So
I did, yeah.
So that's kind of crazy that they were actually buying off and bribing, people, money, politicians, people in authority.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about what a service was like one of these ritualistic services was like. So I'm just going to read from the book here. The baptism of fire was stated to be the way to eternal salvation, and it was also referred to as the seal of God. The Great Seal was a euphemism for the removal of the entire organ, and this was considered to be the highest form of dedication. The Lesser Seal was just the old ordinary style of castration. So you take off the whole twig and berries, and you get the Greater Seal or the Great Seal.
You get eternal salvation. That's the only. It says the only.
It's like you're locked in.
Well, it's stated to be the way to eternal salvation.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, all right, we'll take the berries and the twig for eternal life. So,
if Jesus said that,
if Jesus said that,
would you?
If Jesus said that,
if he said the only way, like if you knew that the religion was true, it had all the backing of Christianity, all the years of.
Well, if I had that faith, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But Jesus said, and we know he said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life."
Right, but I'm saying,
right, not.
But what if it's just one of those things to think about.
You could earn your way to heaven if that were the case.
Well, I'm saying if there was a religion, if these guys actually had the backing of years of documents that all fulfilled the prophecy,
right.
would you
No,
do it?
I don't know. I mean, right now, top of my head, I would say no because I know the truth. But
I'm not talking about.
If I came into Christianity and that was like the claim,
that is the only way. No, I'm saying.
I guess I would if I wanted to go to heaven for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the other alternative?
I would.
You know. I mean,
don't go to heaven.
There's cults that do that, right? Which we're reading about. All right. Normal marital relations between man and woman were considered sinful. Parents, in giving life to their children, committed a very mortal sin. This was the reason given for making the neophyte, before initiation, write the names of his progenitors on a paper and trample them underfoot. It should be mentioned, however, that this practice was claimed by the members of some communities to be a symbolic one in which the candidate formally indicated his severance from his worldly ties. Variations, as already noted, allowed 2 children to be born before initiation, and it is reported that only 1 child was allowed in some groups of the order. So not only was there this baptism of fire for eternal life, you could cut off everything and then get that guarantee. Then they were talking about how having children was a mortal sin.
And even sex was sinful.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. That's just crazy to me.
Yeah.
Thank God for sex. Like, think of the twisting of this for just a minute. You guys are laughing over there, but thank God for sex, man. It's a beautiful thing. And here's the thing: is it's like God made it and it's good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so the enemy wants to pervert it and make it bad and make it something.
Well, I mean, when you think about modern day, what is the biggest tenets? So, I don't know if we talked about this, but sex is symbolic of. I mean, it's life. It's life. That's the greatest. But you. As a
continuing
human,
life, yeah.
Yeah, you're bringing. I mean, I'm not going to say that we're being gods in this way, but we are like God in His image to create humans from the way that He gave us. So that's why the liberals they're always going after life. The thing is, they hate life. That's why they're attacking gender. They're going after the institution of procreation. Like by telling boys to. I mean, you think about this right now. I'm going to go off on this thing.
All right, do it.
Liberals are doing this right now because they're telling boys, if a boy is like, oh, I like pink, then they're saying, oh, he's a girl.
Right.
Put him on hormone blockers, which is essentially, I mean, it's castrating him. It's not producing testosterone. He's being medically castrated.
Chemical castration.
So liberal people and these mentally ill people that are committing child abuse by giving hormone blockers to kids.
Did you say liberal or mentally ill people?
Yeah, this is...
No, I love when you phrase it like that.
I mean, who else would... I mean, seriously, think about this. We're laughing about these guys that... I mean...
Castrate themselves, right?
Think about this. Actually, I'm going to... Think about... I'm putting the book down. Think about this for a second. Okay?
You know what really grinds my gears?
I hate Family Guy so much. Don't ever say anything about that. I hate Family Guy so much.
Stop.
I do. But think about this. We're talking...
You're just jealous, Chris.
I don't even know what that is.
That's the old man.
Oh, okay.
You're a mighty fine boy.
That means nothing to me. Okay. I'm sorry, I don't get the reference. But think about this. So we're like joking about this. Even when I was just saying that about, if Jesus came down and it was the same religion, but the only way to get eternal life, we would, if it was the only thing, and he said, you got to cut it off. That's the only way to get to heaven.
Right.
And he did it. I'm just saying, if that same religion, we probably wouldn't be laughing about it. I mean,
oh, we take it very seriously.
We take it very seriously.
Yeah.
So you think we're laughing like, so if these people actually did believe and these people were performing miracles around them through the demons giving them power or whatever, if they actually believed it enough that they were willing to do it, like they weren't doing it to their kid, like, like at least it's one person doing it to themselves.
Right.
Or offering it. They're not doing it to their children. I mean, think about that. And this isn't like a new idea, and I'm not saying anything that's like mind-blowing, but I mean, we're praising people that are literally castrating their children. in the same way.
Well,
I mean,
we're not, but people are.
People are.
Culture is, yeah. So
and you're raised up. If you do that, you're so progressive. You're fighting for rights of trans people, which don't exist because it's mental illness. So
right.
by indulging these people and castrating your children. So if you're oh, this is so weird. Oh my God, these Ruskies are so backwards. No, like Americans are doing that every day. And the media is telling them you're empowering your child to medically castrate them, doing the same thing.
So it comes directly, it's in a direct assault from the Word of God, because the Word of God said the first instruction he gave Adam and Eve was what?
Be fruitful and multiply.
That's right.
Yeah.
Go have lots of kids. Make kids.
Yeah.
Fulfill the earth. Make it populated.
Yeah.
You know? And nothing's changed since then.
No.
Right.
I mean, so that's why you see, and it's not only making these children not be able to have kids, but the promotion of homosexuality and sodomy. I mean,
right.
The promotion of that is not, you don't make babies by through sodomy.
Right.
That's not how
there's
it
no
works.
procreation.
So,
that's right.
I mean, you got to think this is again liberal. You know, the liberals are doing this. They're not doing anything new. They're attacking children.
Yeah.
They're abusing children by doing the same thing. So you should be outraged at all these people that are castrating their children. I know. I'm just speaking.
I think more people are outraged than would let on, and I think because of the politically correct culture that we live in, that people are fearful to say anything.
Yeah.
Because they'll be, well, look at what happened recently with Mario Lopez.
Yeah.
He came out and said,
he said this exact thing?
Yeah. And then he gets like hammered, and then he has to give this retraction and apologize because of pressure. And people were just like, just stick to your guns. Quit being, look, we all know in our heart of hearts, this is wrong.
Yeah.
It's wrong.
Yeah.
And I agree with you though. I think it's coddling and it's allowing us to move and progress in a wrong direction culturally.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, think about this. If we call all the listeners warriors,
right?
I'm so fed up with people that I was going on this Twitter rant earlier, like, oh, I'm not gonna have friends if I tell them I don't want to go to their gay wedding, or I don't want to do I don't want to do that. I'm not gonna be friends. I'm gonna lose friends. Who cares, man? If you're not gonna stand for truth, and I'm not saying be a jerk about it,
right?
But if you're too scared to stand in the truth of the gospel and the teachings of Jesus, I was gonna say lukewarm Christians don't, last very long. Jesus doesn't like them. He's not approving of that.
Yeah. No, there's a stand
stop
for
being
truth.
A wuss. Stop being a wuss. Stop being a castrated man.
Quit being a castrated.
You know what? If you're scared, you might as well, just cut them off if you're not going to stand up.
Well,
you're gonna get scared that someone's going to call you.
I'm telling you, man. I preached a sermon on this a few years ago about the dangers of political correctness. It has just destroyed. It has destroyed an entire generation. Yeah, it really has.
Multiple generations.
Yeah. But the fruit of it in this generation the most.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk a little bit. Let's go back to the castrators. Let's talk a little bit about what a typical service would be like for them. It says, in a typical Saturday night Skoptsy religion ceremony, men and women were led in the singing of hymns by one or more prophets. These songs were often composed of apparently barbarous words, and the compelling rhythm and the tunes seem to have been the mainstream instrument of producing frenzy.
Mainstream.
Right, I know.
No, you're still stuck in that.
Main instrument of producing frenzy.
They got in your head.
Look, man,
so
they got
to
in my head. Look, man, a lot of people don't know this, and I'll just share this with you. So I grew up with a learning disability. Dyslexia is a problem for me, and my brain goes faster when I'm reading than I can take it in.
Yeah.
So I make a lot of mistakes.
I'm not giving you crap about that. I'm saying that mainstream, I read it as mainstream as well. Every time I start seeing main, that's why I laughed when you said it out loud. We're so conditioned.
You have dyslexia too?
I don't.
Welcome to the club, Rosie.
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying it's so funny that we're so used to seeing main and adding in mainstream because it's all mainstream media.
Yeah. Okay, so
I was just laughing at that.
All right, so music was the main instrument of producing frenzy. During the singing, one or other of the leaders present would apparently pass into some form of trance, and give out orders and prophecies to all the sundry. These ejaculations were carefully written down and abated if at all by philosophers. What kind of word is that to use for this topic? These ejaculations. I'm sorry. I'm so juvenile.
I'm the only adult.
You are not. Oh, just the word choice for that sentence is just horrible. Oh my gosh. All right, the final part of the proceeding was the frenzied dancing, which was carried out in such a violent manner as to give the impression that the dancer was possessed by spirits. The dance most often used resembled shamanistic displays among the Mongols. The arms were held outwards from the sides and moved up and down to the beat of a small drum. Then, with the whole body twitching as if it wanted involuntarily to step forward, the dancer would put his left foot forward by 2 jerky steps, followed by the right. The music varied from a really thundering rhythm on percussion instruments to a form of dance which seemed to resemble twerking. No, I'm kidding. I put that in there. Which seemed to resemble the waltz step of latter days. Sometimes the dancers, in imitation of one of their leaders, would mimic frenzied his or her hand gestures, something like a team of athletes doing calisthenics. The initiation of a new entrant does not follow this pattern at all. Oddly enough, it might be expected that the recruitment would take place after participation in an orgy, another bad word, such as has been described. So that word orgy is in the description of the frenetic dancing and all of that kind of stuff, the frenetic dancing. All right, let's see here. But in the case of the Skoptsy, it was the individual who was first worked up to a stage of piety, excitement, a consciousness of sin, and a desire to participate in the activities of the group, which seemed to him to have so much power and mystery. It also might be said that the instructor once had found a victim, conditioned him by remaining, as it were, one step behind him in his mounting excitement and desire to join the privileged class. In the final vow before the ritual castration, the victim promised, of his own free will, to come to the Redeemer, to keep secret from the emperor, princes, parents, relatives, and friends everything that was connected with these holy affairs, to submit to the persecution, torture, fire, and even death before revealing any part of these mysteries to enemies. So that would be what a window into what some of these ritualistic parties would be like. So it would be like weird music, dancing, and then inappropriate words like ejaculation and orgy used to describe it. And then the prophet or the leader would like do these certain motions, and then people would join in. And so it just was like, it sounds, honestly, knowing a little bit about like Christian stuff, it sounds a little bit like some of these uber charismatic movements.
Yeah.
Kundalini spirit might have been.
Kundalini, yeah.
Kundalini spirit.
Yeah, I was going to say that's it's a common thing to get to an altered state of consciousness is, people do that kind of stuff like dancing really to exhaustion.
Mm-hmm.
Because, that point, the second wind, if you will, or,
yeah,
like that.
Break the wall or whatever they call it.
Yeah. So, that's why they're doing it with the banging. I mean, if it's this banging rhythmic,
like tribal.
I was going to say the Indians do it a lot. The Indians are Indians.
American Indians.
Yeah. Well, I guess all Aboriginal, have the beating drum, which you can sync. I mean, it's a very yoga thing. It's a very Eastern thing when you think about it. Like even just the aspect of speech, right? When they om, because you focus on a word that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Om does not have any meaning in and of itself. It's simply a thing to focus on so that you clear your mind and that kind of thing. And then it's the same thing with repeating the same thing to exhaustion. They do it in like sweat lodges. Mm-hmm. That's where they go. I mean, they get sick. They get violently sick, and they do things like ayahuasca and everything that gets very sick. It dumps all the body. But I mean, sitting in a sweat lodge, dancing around, the exhaustion they reach an altered state of consciousness is ultimately why they do it. So it's very not brand new.
No.
You know,
Yeah.
in many different religions. It's definitely not Christian.
Yeah, it's definitely not. You want to talk about a little bit, because it goes into now a little bit of what their lodges would have been like. You want to jump into that there?
Is it the last paragraph?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the Skoptsy built their meeting places with some care in order to preserve themselves from intrusion. They claimed, of course, that the plan of the buildings and the method of their arrangement was essential to the production of the power which they were using. The general pattern was a room, built as far as possible from any other dwelling house, though surrounded by barns and other buildings. Either in the middle of this enclosure where there was a courtyard, or within the room itself, the orgies were held. There are always a number of secret doors which led to fields, and each member knew where his or her own emergency exit was. This provided against congestion in the case of attack, and the probability of some, at least of the worshippers, might escape. That's funny. They you know, you're going to all go out this door, we're going to go out this one, so they're
like
used to.
Assigned exit doors.
Right, yeah.
That's cool.
In escaping, the senior members would pass through a bee house, placed there to discourage the attentions of any party investigating the premises. You never want to go mess around with a bunch of bees, yeah.
Right. That's actually smart.
It is smart, yeah. There was special garb worn for the devotions. The men wore long, white, wide shirts closed at the neck with long sleeves. It says of quite an oriental pattern. Yeah, there's this book was written a while ago, and so it's not us. There might be some stuff in there. A girdle was tied around the waist, and large baggy trousers completed the outfit. The women wear blue gowns of mankeen in the towns of Chinnits. I don't know. They wore blue gowns, and they covered their heads with white cloths. All wore white stockings at times, and other times were said to be barefooted. In their hands were white handkerchiefs with which they called flags. Members not yet castrated were deemed donkeys or goats, while the others were white lambs or doves.
So the pre-castrated were the donkeys or goats. Is that what they're saying? So
yeah. And then afterwards they were, pure lambs.
You're a lamb.
doves.
You're a dove.
Yeah. And is that what doves sound like?
Yeah, that's
Oh,
a morning dove.
Oh, I've never
No,
heard
they
that.
actually there's I could do it. I used to mimic a mourning dove.
Did that come in handy?
It did. When I was like, I was doing my detective agency and I needed the assistance of animals. I would call the mourning doves to come in and help me every day.
You know what? I'm going to tell a funny story about this. So I had a friend who got really big into transcendental meditation. This is a true story.
I'm already excited.
This is crazy. All right. So he got super into meditating. He would meditate, I'm not even kidding, 10 to 12 hours a day.
Whoa.
He would sit in his room, burn tons of incense. Like the room would just be
Disgusting.
Yeah. Well, just cloudy.
Yeah.
He would just sit there and meditate. He wouldn't eat, wouldn't go to the bathroom, anything. He did this for like a year and a half. And finally, he had what they call complete ego death, which is something that they talk about when you do a lot of hallucinogenics or anything. And this state of...
Nirvana?
No, Nirvana is a
different thing.
Yeah, maybe it is. I'm not so sure with the different terms, but most of these Eastern religions and New Age stuff talk about a oneness. The idea that your individual consciousness eventually melts away, and your individual, and you return to the one,
the universal oneness.
The universal oneness. Yeah. Exactly.
Weird.
So he had that while he was still here, so he didn't know what to do, and he started freaking out because he's like, I don't exist anymore, and but I'm still trapped in this body. And he went through this like very serious crisis,
existential crisis.
So he got sent to this treatment center, and they couldn't stop him from doing it because he was. There were some hippie people that worked there, and they're like, he could die if he doesn't do this. So they let him like have 4 hours of meditation a day. And he would sit out in the fields, in the forest.
Yeah.
And literally he would just sit there, and birds and squirrels and deer and stuff would just come and sit around him. I'm not even making it up. Like he would just sit there and birds would fly down and like sit on his shoulder.
What?
Yeah. So
Oh, that's so awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, that would happen to me too when I was doing my detective agency.
Yeah. But yeah.
They made a movie about it.
What was it called? Detective Pikachu?
No. Pikachu. No, it was
I saw that movie in theaters.
and you call me? You're the one. Oh man. Are you castrated?
No, I did see
Watching
it with a friend. That was a
damn
guy.
movie about Pikachu, and you're a full-grown man. What do you call
My
yourself?
friend wanted to see it.
Oh, your friend. If your
Yeah.
friend wanted to jump off a bridge, would you? Oh man.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking of Ace Ventura,
Oh, yeah.
pet detective.
Oh,
right.
okay. In order to absorb the part of the divinity of the renowned Shilov, small pieces of bread were eaten, which were placed in holes of a monument which had been erected to him. It was claimed by a priest, a spy, who cultivated certain Skoptsy leaders on church order. So there you go. The church is actually trying to infiltrate them.
Mm-hmm.
That there was a communion of flesh and blood. This possibly fictitious practice was said to take the particularly obnoxious form of cannibalism, which could be expected among a community of castrated tenants.
Can we say adrenochrome?
No, they're talking about
I know.
Yeah, okay.
Again, with the weird
The
use
communion.
of words. Yeah.
No, they're talking about eating the
The castrated parts.
castrated parts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I figured that, but I was just trying to.
Yeah, castration is called the baptism of fire by the sect because, according to their beliefs, it was originally carried out by a red-hot iron. Because of human weakness, this was amended to allow a sharp knife to be employed. Christ, they hold, and all the early Christians all practiced it.
Oh, right. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. It seems, however, that the act, rather than the instrument with it, is all important. So it doesn't matter about the thing that they did it. This is borne out by the statistics published by the authorities as follows. So this is the number of
What they use
what
and how
they
many
use-
people.
what
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
knife 164, razor 108, hatchet 30,
Hatchet.
a scythe,
Don't move.
a scythe, a scythe.
Is that like a sickle?
No, that's what
What's a scythe?
the Grim Reaper holds.
Yeah, sickle. That's
Well, I think
it's like a big,
Yeah.
with like a big arched kind of
Yeah,
blade.
but I think the sickle is handheld.
Yeah.
The scythe is on a big
Stick.
on a big stick. Yeah, that's
Well, how do
why
they do that one?
you got to hold real close. Yeah, you got to be real good with that.
Mm.
And then iron, glass, tin, etc.
Tin.
17.
Oh gosh!
Oh,
Please hurry! I'm trying.
Oh.
The tin isn't sharp enough.
Oy. Oy. Okay.
Oh man.
The exact location of the operation varied a good deal. In 620 cases investigated by the police, 96 were carried out in houses, 19 castrations in prisons, 41 in baths, 32 in barns, 6 in cellars, 136 in woods, and 223 on roads and in fields. That's on roads? Pull over.
Probably in the middle of the night. That's my guess.
I guess so. If the authorities were unable to account for the strange beliefs and practices of the Skoptsy, they were at least going to comply with filling in the appropriate form under where the offense was committed. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
I'll keep
That's
going.
just crazy, man.
Yeah. Women members were almost as fanatical as men, 40% as fanatical, that is to say. Within them, we are informed, the operation is as fearful as it is revolting, and yet we find women among the operators. Among 43 peasant women who acted in this capacity, 5 had actually operated upon men. 4 members in 10 were females on average. So women were into it.
We had this discussion before too. How does a woman get castrated?
Yeah.
And you talked about female genital mutilation.
Yeah.
FGM.
FGM.
Yeah.
Which another cult
Right.
all across the world
I know, man.
in many different continents still practices. including here in the United States.
Yeah, it should be illegal, but
yeah.
It's just not even funny. It's just
don't look that up.
Yeah.
It's very sad that they do that. But I was gonna say, so they obviously had women who were into this. So maybe I'm saying this to myself as well. But if you think that there's not a woman out there for you,
if you're single right now,
you're single. There's hope.
there's actually castrators, like a farmers only and Christian mingle. It's like
maybe
castrators mingle,
castrated mingle, or oh my gosh.
Hey, look, we have the highest or the lowest pregnancy first date rates of any of these because you're castrated.
And the highest STD because no one would wear.
Right.
You wouldn't wear protection if you.
Right. You just.
Yeah. Anyways, all right. Let's finish. Let's wrap this up. The Skoptsy
dying quick.
The Skoptsy cast their net wide in terms of converts, and in 1850 it was remarked that if their numbers of their aristocratic adherents were small compared to the peasants within their ranks, this was merely because in Russia most people were peasants. Yeah. So there you go. One report states that their numbers in the matter of proportions to peasants to people of quality approximate to the usual relation of numbers.
I love how they go, people of quality.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Joe Biden when he was saying that, when he talked about poor people.
Oh,
and he said,
poor people are just as smart as white people. Hillary Clinton said something similar back on
I remember that
she said instead of saying like she said something, I can't remember what it was, but she was like hard-working Americans and she kept saying hard-working Americans as opposed to saying I don't know, whatever they would say it now.
Right. Yeah, I know. I remember that. She got heat for that.
Yeah. All right, so here we go. Sampling by class is still extant. So 4 ladies and 4 gentlemen of nobility, 10 military and 5 naval officers, 14 civil servants, there's your government people, 19 priests, 148 merchants, 220 citizens, 2,736 peasants, of whom 827 were women, 119 landowners, 443 soldiers and soldiers' wives and daughters. The attempts at suppression of the sect served in many cases only to increase its power, a fact which had been foreseen was actively canvassed by the members, which would make sense if they keep trying to kill you.
Right. Yeah.
It starts growing, you'd be emboldened. Skoptsy, on the other hand, who had been placed in the care of monks, converted whole monasteries to their teachings, in spite of the horror with which they had been viewed upon entry. The unpopularity of the clergy and the police actually provided a large number of cases of emulation on the part of individuals who wanted to share their fate. Observers were convinced that the only way to stop the spread of the cult was to deport its members to unpopulated places and leave them there to die out. Another obstacle to the crushing of the movement, much noted during the beginning of the 20th century, was the fact that the Skoptsy endowed churches. There you go. Paid large sums of money to priests and officials, and generally became looked upon as benefactors by large numbers of people who were thus prevented from doing their duty to protect society against them. So they paid off the people that could have done something against them.
Yeah, yeah.
The riddle of the power of the Skoptsy has had some light thrown upon it by more psychological research, noting that the active emasculation and self-mutilation is a very old form of religious activity. This guy in this book believes that this cult and others like it originated with a self-destructive urge which can be found or developed in many people. So capitalizing on, I guess, an innate... It's kind of scary if that's right.
Yeah,
but I mean, it would kind of make sense as to why some people, do these things if it's an innate thing in people.
Yeah, and you always have that one thing over them of the whole idea of eternal life can come through this one action.
Right.
And then you also get the secret knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're a peasant, you want to be moving up.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. It is related, he thinks, in common with many other psychological thinkers, to all forms of self-mortification, whether done in the name of religion or otherwise. There are to this day people in many parts of the world who will claim that self-mutilation is but a step to the attainment of mystical insight that is associated with the idea of sacrifice seems in no doubt at all. What is still in dispute is whether all forms of self-mortification are merely mental states or whether there is in fact some inner response which can be tapped by these means. Few people would go to the irredeemable lengths of the Skoptsy in order to find out, which is true. The methods employed with such success in mass conversions by the Skoptsy may depend upon the existence of teachers fanatical enough to drive home a dominant idea into the minds of suggestible people. So that's important. If if there's not some charismatic leader saying, cut off your junk.
Right,
If it's just some like goober nerd like, hey guys, you should really do this. It's cool. Look at me. I got so much money and all these cool women. Like
they're like, you can't even use the women.
Right, yeah. And he's like, you should do it.
It's a literal orgy at our at our house of God.
Yeah. So they had a lot of charismatic leaders.
Yeah.
If this is so, then there is no secret knowledge such has been hinted at in the Skoptsy Confessions. It is unlikely that the cult will have as startling a future as its past. So if there is some secret there,
yeah,
it's still going on. It says, if there's actually something to it that these people passed on.
That's right.
So, which is, I think, a very, interesting point is that if there wasn't some secret knowledge being passed around,
right, yeah,
people wouldn't just do it.
Yeah, no, totally. That's that whenever there's something to be attained, it draws attention
in tangible ways.
That's right. Yeah. Hey, I don't mean to cut you off here. Pardon the pun.
Yeah. Oh.
Remember when we checked the Twitter twinding? Twitter. Wow. I can talk. I can do it. I can. Twitter trending. Guess where we are now? We were at number 7. Guess what it's moved to now?
20.
With 78 or 71.8 thousand tweets, it is now 21 trending. The number 10 trending item has only 14,000 tweets.
So this got more than 14,000 tweets in the last hour.
Right.
And it moved down.
Right. It's not even making sense. The number 3 only has 19,000 tweets.
That makes sense.
How is it moving down? Oh, you know what? I just refreshed it. It's completely gone.
Well,
it's not even in the top 25 now.
There you go. There is
that's it.
Ongoing suppression, literally as we talk.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, since people, like we were talking about at the beginning, I'll wrap it up with this. People were sending me stuff. Apparently, the autopsy has since come out, and the medical examiner didn't say it was suicide. He said something along the lines of, we don't really...
Suspicious death, huh?
Well, no, but it was just, I don't know. I don't think he said necessarily suspicious, but he said it was pending further information.
Oh, man.
So you think if it was a suicide, he would just say, hey, he killed himself.
Right.
Clear. Strangulation.
Clear. That's right. Yeah. Asphyxiation, loss of oxygen.
Yeah, asphyxiation. Asphyxiation.
Well, dude, that's the castrators of Russia.
Yes.
Everything you wanted to know about them and their crazy ideas, beliefs, and religious rituals.
Yes. So this was a long one.
Yeah.
Thank you guys we were actually planning on doing 2 other ones in the same episode.
What's cool is we have some of these crazy weird ones, because this is one of the weirdest ones we've ever done.
Yeah.
With these last couple that we're going to, the next couple that we're going to do, the next 2 or 3 or whatever that we're going to do, they're crazy. They're just weird like this.
Yeah.
So anyways.
So thanks for sticking with us.
Yeah.
Hope you learned something.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for everything. And we'll catch you next time on All Out War.
Stay hydrated.
Thanks for listening to the All Out War podcast today. We hope you enjoyed the episode. If you want to know more, you can visit us on the web at alloutwar.us, or you can find us on Twitter at alloutwarcast. Hey, thanks again for listening. and we'll catch you next time.